So now that our center stand and side stand have been removed, and again, I cannot emphasize strongly enough, when you put this back together, put copper anti-seize on the threads of this auto retract for the clutch. It's a good time to service the side stand, center stand as well. A little bit rusty and probably sloppy. So our next step is going to be lever up your clutch arm, remove the cable from the little pocket. You're going to pull this down. Don't be surprised if the rubber breaks. Now the clutch cable gets fed up through there. You will notice that the forward portion of this hole is larger than the back. You need to push the boot through the forward part. We can leave it till we get the swing arm off. Leave it. There's no sense tearing it. We're going to change the cable anyway, but for... you're getting it. Anyway, you can work that up through. Every time I do a spline lube on a K-bike, I put a new clutch cable on it, unless it's been changed, obviously, recently. This one has not. Once we are to the point where that cable is off and out of the transmission, leave it, Sean. It's not worth fucking with. Oh, you got it. Okay. Okay, that's free. Our next step, loosen this nut with a 27mm wrench or a 27mm socket. Just break it free. It's free. Now you need a 6mm T-handle. You remove that pin, and then we're going to move to the right side of the bike, and we're going to take a 5mm T-handle and remove these 3 screws. Now that your 3 bolts have been removed, you can reinstall one of them in the middle or use a longer one. This is a longer one. Throw your vice grips on there. If you own a Morgan knocker, slide hammer, not a porn star, you could use that instead. I did it this way to show you, because most people don't own a Morgan knocker. Anyway, that's how you get it out. When it goes back together, you should put assembly lube on this, or Staubberog's paste, or grease, or copper anti-seize, something. It needs to be lubricated so that it doesn't seize in place. So now we have the swing arm off. Our drive shaft is out. We can see on this end there's some gray Honda Molly kind of looking snot on it. And there's our drive shaft. Back on our swing arm, and this can go over in the pile of parts. Our next step is going to be loosening of this clamp, which this is your clutch arm boot. This is the #1 leak on the back of a transmission on a K-bike. These boots are about $30. Oh, this is 2013. They actually might be almost $40 by now. I remember back when they were 20, when I started working on these fucking things. So anyway, let's not get too fucking nostalgic. You loosen that up, get that clamp loose for me, and work it off with screwdriver. Get the back of the boot. We're gonna replace this freaking boot anyway, but you don't always have to. If it's not leaking and it's in good shape, get a drain pan before you pull it off. All the way. Drippy, drip, 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 drip. This is why I said this is the #1 leak on K-bikes. Your fluid level is above that boot. If the boot splits or gets dry and splits or tears, it's going to leak. Just like that. So now, under this you're going to find a spring. Compress the spring, remove the spring. Next in line is the puck, which if Sean grabs the needle nose pliers that were just here, he can remove that. Yep, just nip it by the end. There you go. We're going to put that in line with this. Next is the bearing. Notice how the bearing fits. Go ahead. Magnet would have worked perfect, but you can do it with that too. This is the back side. This is the front side. I'm going to do a picture of the back side now. I just showed you two pictures. The front followed by the back. Alright, let me rephrase that. This is the side that goes to the back of the transmission. The dished part goes forward in the transmission so that this side will collect more oil. Our next step is going to be removal of the computer, the battery, and the coil cover, and then the starter, and then the inner fender, and then we'll be sliding the transmission back. Now, to proceed with this happiness, cover off. This one has an alarm system. Almost comical. You lift the cover, pull this cover out. There is your computer connector for your LE Jetronic fuel injection system. This is for the alarm. This was unplugged. You want to know why? Because I'll bet you the alarm shorted out and the fucking bike would never start. Our next step. Up here you see a little hole. What the fuck did my screwdriver just do? One flat blade screwdriver or a pick or something of those lines. You're going to insert it like this. You're going to pry backwards. Then you can lift the computer plug out from the back. Yeah. Just like that. See what your screwdriver does? It pulls the clip back to unclip from the little hook on the computer. Now you lift this whole box up. Somebody drilled it for more power. Kidding, you're not going to get any more power out of it. Now your battery's exposed. Normally there'd be a big metal bracket that ran across here with a rubber bushing that would hold the coolant jug in place. This one doesn't fucking have it. I think I still have some left over. Used ones that maybe the customer would like. As we see, the battery has even been dislodged because it's been fucking dancing all over the place. Good way to end up with a cracked case and battery acid all over your nice bare aluminum transmission. Our next step is going to be the removal of the ground wire. This is the end of the battery ground wire. We're going to take it off from the battery side. Again, small bolt. Frequent that these are seized, the bolt head will strip out, the bolt will snap. I suppose in a worst case scenario, if you got a gorilla working on it, maybe you could break that whole freaking boss off the transmission and then be praying to the JB Weld gods. So anyway, Sean's going to take the negative off, and then he's going to take the positive terminal off, and then we're going to lift this battery out. Speaking of the JB Weld gods, you got to love this. This is the gear indicator on the back of the transmission. This tells the instrument cluster that you are in neutral, 0, first, second, third, fourth, or fifth gear. We can see all the snot hanging off it. You can see how it's cracked. Somebody JB welded it back together. It's not leaking, and we don't have to take it off, so I'm going to leave it the fuck alone. unless the customer tells me otherwise, but I'm not overly concerned about it. Just wanted to point out that that's been repaired before. Now that our battery is disconnected, we're going to lift the battery up, tip it back, and slide it up through here. I got it. As the seat closes, we might even have to remove the seat prop rod. Yeah, let me... You got it? You got it. There you go. There you go. Now that's out of the way. Now we look at some components. Here is your alternator. You do not, under any fucking circumstances, have to remove the alternator to take the transmission out, to replace the clutch, to do a spline lube, or any such thing. Leave it the fuck alone. Starter, however, does need to be unbolted because the starter bolts to the transmission. 2 bolts. Remove those 2 bolts. The 5mm Allen socket or a T-handle. Those bolts are fairly long as well. I'm going to remove both of those, and then we have to slide the starter back a little bit, which I'll show you in a moment. Now get your T-handle and zing them right out of there. Always best to loosen hardware with a ratchet or a wrench and then go after it with a T-handle or something, you know, whatever, to make things a little quicker. Air if you have to, but I really don't recommend using air tools. Don't worry about it, we can rescue that later. Yeah, zip that up. Starter's a little bit funky to get pulled back. Sometimes they can be difficult, sometimes not so difficult. So I'll show you that in a second. Here is your starter. You see it wiggles back and forth. You need to grip it, wriggle it, and pull it back. That's all you gotta do. You don't even have to take it out. Just pull it back. Now it's out of the way. Now Sean's gonna get a 4mm Allen T-handle. Blow these 4 off. That is your coil cover. 3mm. Sorry. I knew it was 3. I had 4 stuck in my head for some reason. I'm only taking that off to make it a little bit easier to get to the bell housing bolt. There. Be back soon. Your next step will require a 10mm socket. These 2 bolts near the seat latch. The nuts with no washers under them, which is kind of ironic because they certainly came from the factory with washers under these, and you can see that there used to be washers here, but whatever. It's going to get washers when it goes back together here, I can tell you that. I'm going to take those 2 nuts off. Why, you ask? Because this whole inner fender, those are the 2 we're doing now, goes all the way back to here. They ride on little bumpers here. Basically, it's in the way. Without over-stressing the plastic, you have to be able to drop this down or remove it so that you have room to move the transmission back. So Sean's dealing with that. If you feel that it's better to remove the whole thing, again, we're back in this section. Take the 2 wing nuts off. Take these 2 screws out, slide this off, and that whole back fender can drop down, and everything here would be out of the way. We're not too concerned about that at the moment.